Joe Biden signed stunning deal, stunning, at the COP27 summit that he attended when everybody was sleeping this past week. Quietly a deal was signed, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe we Americans are getting a tax credit for being almost carbon neutral. As John Francois Kerry said, 90% of the bad emissions come from outside the United States. We're doing a great job. No, ladies and gentlemen. And now Biden signs us up for reparations on climate change. That is right, folks. Reparations on climate change. So Joe Biden met in Egypt for a massive climate summit known as COP27, and unbelievably, he reversed prior policies of both, and I stress this, both Republicans and Democratic administrations. This was not just a Republican policy up until this weekend. This was a policy of every Democratic administration as well as every GOP administration. And what Joe Biden agreed to is remarkably, we are going to be paying for this now for the rest of our lives, ladies and gentlemen, your children and your children's children. I stress this, unless the Republicans, and I hate to say it, we have to depend on the Republicans, highlight this issue and expose the issue and force Biden to back down. I don't want to be talking about this stuff. Let me first say I'm all for green, but this is a shakedown of the highest order, and this is terrible for our country. Joey has now agreed to contribute an initial transfer payment of $1 billion to a climate justice fund. I know what you're thinking. What the hell is a climate justice fund, Tim? Let me tell you what it is. It's a racket. It's a con. It's the ultimate grift. So the argument that was made by climate extremists, by those on the radical environmentalists, the progressive left, is that climate change is being created primarily by rich countries, okay? Developed countries. As they are widely known, the United States being numero uno. But you could also have, they stated, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the European Union. Of course, we'll pay the most, and they never pay, if you look at history. And so we get, as we get wealthier and wealthier, we emit, the theory is the most carbon emissions, and so does the third world, the developing world, the poor countries who are suffering and bearing the brunt of this so-called climate change. As we all know, if we economically elevated the poor and each person had about $5,000, they would pollute less. They'd live better lives. You make people poorer, they pollute more, and it's bad for the environment. One of the biggest examples they gave at the summit, they said, look at the extreme floods. I kid you not. I almost fell over. Look at the extreme floods, the flooding, the devastating floods in Pakistan, or as Obama likes to call it, Pakistan. So look at Pakistan and all the devastating floods over the summer, which they say is a direct consequence and cost of global climate change. So to compensate the poor countries, the developing world, for all of the rising sea levels and extreme wealth that we created in the weather, the flooding, the droughts, and everything else, the earthquakes, hurricanes, we must now engage in reparations. We must now engage in massive, and this is what it is, folks. If you make less than $1 billion a year, you should listen to this very carefully. We must now engage in massive transfer payments. And so the initial check signed by Biden this past week was $1 billion. That's with a B, ladies and gentlemen, $1 billion. Just, on the part of the United States. The Europeans are going to have to kick in. Don't hold your breath. The Canadians, the Australians, the Japanese, they always say, you guys got so much money, we're not going to give. It goes on and on and on. But if you look at the actual language, and I did, and it's very frightening, and this is not just me talking, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just reporting the facts. If you look at the actual language of this agreement, the Wall Street Journal reported on this, even the New York Times reported on this. This is being reported by major media outlets across the spectrum. Some of them have, fine-lined it, but there's some concern, and they know this is not good for the United States. This now commits the United States, perpetuity, forever. I stress, forever. It's an open-ended funnel to potentially contribute trillions and trillions of dollars in reparations / transfer payments to third world countries. I'm not kidding. Like Turkey, South Africa, Pakistan, you name it, Indonesia, right across the board. So our wealth, your hard-earned money, is going to be drained and depleted as we basically sign off on reparations to other countries that they claim are victims of climate change and the victims of our development, our wealth, our so-called carbon emissions. Unbelievable. Now, I like to look at both sides of things. I'm all for green. Let me just say that. Okay. The left, if you're on that side of the fence, is gloating. The left is celebrating this, something that, and I don't think they understand over here what this actually means. The people at the top do. The environmentalists have wanted this for decades. And the reason why they wanted this for decades is they know they can get the industrialized world to drain its wealth of trillions of dollars that will break the backs of our economy and break the back of the middle class and will quickly, not a conspiracy, accelerate the Great Reset. This is what the World Economic Forum, WEF, and Klaus Schwab have always wanted, and Biden just gave it to them over the weekend on a silver platter. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, on a silver platter. He just slid it over to them. They are popping the champagne corks right now. If you notice, there are two countries that are not signatories to this deal. Who do you think that is? China and India. China does not have to commit a cent, and the Indians as well. So China gets to keep all of the money. India gets to keep all of the money. These countries are by far the biggest, and I've talked about this, emitters of pollution and the biggest emitters of, in particular, of carbon dioxide, CO2, greenhouse gases in the entire world, ladies and gentlemen, in the entire world. It is not even close. We, the United States, and Canada's right behind, have the cleanest economy on the face of the earth. Period. We are already almost carbon neutral. As John Kerry said, the United States could go to zero and it wouldn't change a thing except destroy everything. The Europeans are behind us. They're right behind us. But the ones who are emitting the most carbon emissions and the most pollution and all the greenhouse gas is China. It's India. It's Brazil. It's the Middle East. Right? It's developing powers all over the world. So let me get this straight, ladies and gentlemen. We're committed to hand over, fork over, trillions of dollars in reparations. But maybe the biggest polluting country in the history of the world, China, doesn't have to hand over 1 cent. Not even a dime. Not even a penny. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So our wealth, our money, our hard-earned taxpayer money gets funneled off. We get drained. We get weakened. We get depleted while China continues to get stronger and stronger with coal-fired, plants, guzzling up fossil fuels, industrializing at a rapid, massive, unprecedented rate. By the way, our coal plants emit vapor. We have the cleanest coal in the world. Doesn't hurt the environment. My friends, we are being taken to the cleaners again. And to the heart of the issue, I am sorry, where is the science in all this? One side, the left, keeps going on and on about the science. It's the science. Show me the science. Show me the science. Show me how those floods in Pakistan were a direct result of so-called climate change. Where is the evidence? Because I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Pakistan has been having floods and monsoons literally for thousands of years. Nothing new. Just like I showed how hurricanes are actually down in Florida. Okay? Those are the facts. So I don't know what you people are talking about. Suddenly there's a flood in Pakistan at the COP27 is the highlight of the meeting. Yeah, you don't know that there's been they've been having floods there for thousands of years. Show me the cause. Show me the cause effect. How does so-called man-made climate change, how did it cause that specific flood? Show me the evidence. I'll give you $100,000. And I got a top scientist who's a friend of mine who's published in the Midwest. You don't have evidence. You phony fraudsters. What this is, it's a shakedown of the highest order. And when I got to pay more in taxes for nothing, it's a joke. This is a massive grift and con. I think the only one that is really upset about this is, frankly, I think it's Al Sharpton. I feel sorry for you, Al Sharpton. I'm on your side. The non-reverend reverend, he's probably saying to himself, how come we don't get a slice of the pie? What about my group? Jesse Jackson, that shakedown artist, He's saying reparations for the third world? Are you crazy? I agree with you guys. African Americans don't get reparations, but the third world countries do? It's ridiculous. What a bunch of phonies and frauds. That Joe Biden would even sign this, and then he would even send our money, our hard-earned money. By the way, this is going to go into the coffers. For you folks that don't know how this works. The coffers of the Egyptian government, the South African government, the Pakistani government. They're going to loot like there's no tomorrow, and they're going to use this money for terrorism and to come against us. And let's talk about Pakistan for a moment. You mean the same government that we gave in the history of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen? We gave Pakistan billions and billions over the last 20 years to fight terrorism. And yet we find out not only that that money was being stolen, but they were hiding Osama bin Laden in a compound. And we're obscuring it from us the whole time. So we're going to give them billions and billions more. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think so. My friends, enough is enough. We owe the world nothing. We owe these countries nothing. And to Pakistan, India, China, Egypt, South Africa, all these other countries. You want to use your air conditioning for your hotels? Have at it. You want to use so-called fossil fuels, natural gas, industrialized, bring hundreds of millions of people out of hunger and poverty? Have at it. We all know the poorer you are, the more you pollute, and the worse you are for the environment. They did studies on this. Give everyone $5,000. Lift them up out of a poverty. It improves the environment. Make them poorer. It makes the environment worse. That's a fact. You know, why should we feel guilty if you're creating one of the most prosperous, wealthiest, greatest economies in the history of the world, and everyone wants to come here? This is the road to national suicide, ladies and gentlemen. I say no to climate reparations. I'm all for green. Okay? Do you? Do you? So the framework is in place for global governments, a global government's regime to tackle climate change at the heart of the world order. The Great Reset. It is a massive fund that will commit us to trillions of dollars of taxpayers' monies, giving our monies to third world countries in the name of climate justice. I guess it is better than using our monies for wars to launder monies, i.e. Ukraine. Okay, right? Think about it. The corruption is going to be immense. Trillions of dollars sloshing around. Politicians are going to get line their pockets. There's going to be conditions to these countries so it gets kicked back. You can launder money through this, as well as there's going to be, the kickback, the so-called fees, okay? This is going to land into the pockets of some of the most corrupt governments across the entire world. Our politicians are going to be involved. No wonder, Joe Biden agreed to this entire fund based on his history and agreed to this deal. There's corruption on both sides. I'm not just calling out one side here. This is why a way for the oligarchs in the United States to get sickeningly rich, ladies and gentlemen, obscenely rich. And it is our money they are flushing right down the rat hole. As Obama said, the wealth of the United States must be redistributed to the rest of the world to equalize nations on the same playing field. We've gotten too fat and rich, too cocky in the United States. Bring it down a notch. But of course, he and his cohorts will administer transfer for a fee. Do you understand? They give these countries money, but there's a fee. This is a global green socialism. All the oligarchs are going to get, wet their beaks on this one, Republicans and Democrats. This benefits the ruling class at our expense. Here's something interesting. Did you know that one volcano eruption, and remember, volcano eruptions have been going on for millions of years. So Iceland, you owe us a lot of money, people. Iceland, right? Did you know that one volcano eruption emits more greenhouse gas than all the cars, all the planes, and all the oil and natural gas, in the entire world combined? Did you know that? I will leave you with this. During the period of 1998 through 2013, there has been no significant warming despite a 7% rise in carbon levels on the planet. That is a fact. The rate of global warming has decelerated since 1951 despite 26% increase in carbon levels. Long-term goals of this madness is to curtail economic growth and create a nation of serfs. I don't want to be talking about this, ladies and gentlemen, at all. However, I don't want to pay more in taxes and help some billionaire buy another jet. It's shameful. Absolutely shameful. You make less than $1 billion, you should be listening to this. Granted, if you're on the greenhouse side and you're going to get the kickbacks, I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy for you. I don't want to pay more in taxes. I'm just looking at the data. I'm just a messenger. Okay? You make less than $1 billion a year, you should be concerned. Okay? This is a joke. Like I said, the money is going to go to third world countries. And what they do is we give this money, but we attach conditions. And there's fees. Like you think we gave $60 billion to Ukraine without conditions? Did you know the president of Ukraine has one of the largest, most beautiful houses in Miami? What has he got a house in Miami for? So they get some of the money, yes. But that's $60 billion. You know that went back to loot. That went back to politicians. That went to lobbyists. That went to special interests. We don't give money to these countries. We have a war. It goes to the Senate. Well, we got a war. We need $60 billion. You think our government's going to give them $60 billion without getting money back? Come on. Come on. This money has fees attached to it, and people on this are going to get filthy rich at taxpayer expense. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 10 more million people in poverty. We have $31 trillion in debt. Okay? Am I the bad guy here for showing some concern about this? That we are $31 trillion in debt. I am seeing more poor on the streets, more homeless. Our cities are looking horrible. You know, you go to Saudi Arabia and see how beautiful their cities are and airports, and now we're going to loot taxpayer money, and this is trillions of dollars, ladies and gentlemen. Our country looks like a hellhole in certain parts. It looks like a third world country. So I'm a little upset about this. I don't want to talk about this, but I love this country. And you should be extremely concerned about this. They don't talk about this. That's why it's passed on a Friday night, and all the news stations are talking about, oh, it was such a wonderful kind of a downer of a summer. It was okay, you know, whatever. And all these guys and gals flying on their jets to go to this summit. It is such a con and a joke. Look at the data. Look at the science. But what I'm saying is this is going to be a transfer of wealth from U.S. taxpayers to third world countries, and it's going to get funneled to these countries. That money could be used for terrorism, and it's also going to get funneled for fees to the oligarchs. I think it's unfair. And enough is enough. Enough is enough. Cheers.